Hey, welcome back, Knicks fans. Just wanted to go over the previous game that we played yesterday. The New York Knicks went down and played the Charlotte Hornets. The Knicks, we came out with a 15-point victory. It was a really good win. It was a really good field goal win because a lot of the young guys got to play. And so the purpose of this is to actually look at the stats to see which guys had the biggest impact on the game. And also, we're just going to take a look at some issues that's popping up from the last two games that I think the team should be a little concerned about. And then you guys can actually comment below to let me know what you guys think about these issues. It's basically with the defense, obviously. Yes, the Charlotte Hornets, they're a very good offensive team. I think, it's like top 3 or 5 in the league. And so they are not a very easy team to handle, to deal with, or even to slow down. And so I know they had their work cut out for them. However, just wanted to take a look at a few things, a few of the issues. But first, we're going to look at the individual performances and the guys that had the biggest impact on the game. And so we're going to start with some of the stats that we gathered from the box score. Field goal made and attempts, field goal percentage, rebounded stats, and the points, and then the plus minus. I have it highlighted here because I want to compare to basically. I wanted to compare this plus minus to the net point production by each individual player. As you guys see, the plus minus is 15, adds up to 15 because we won by 15, and as you guys see, my net point production also adds up to 15 because we had a 15-point win. But there's different ways that I'm doing it. This is basically, I'm taking all these plus minuses here, instead of just attributing it to the 5 that was on the squad, that basically to the 5 team members that was on the floor. I'm essentially assigning basically, you guys know how I've been doing it. I've just been figuring out what the matchups were. For every bucket the Charlotte Bobcats scored, who did they score it on, who was at fault when that bucket was scored, and so that's basically who I'm assigning the points to. And so, but I wanted to compare these plus minuses that the NBA.com that they're using versus mine, just mostly to highlight that both add up to 15, but also to explain the differences, right? Which I guess I just did. And so let's start with R.J. Barrett. He had a monster game. It was really interesting. On the offensive end, they just couldn't do anything with him. He was able to get into the paint at will. He was also able to find basically his teammates. He got, I guess what we would consider hockey assists. So he necessarily didn't get the final assist. I think he has 3 assists in this game. However, he did a good job moving the ball around and did a good job basically exploiting mismatches. It wasn't just RJ. Evan Fournier also did an excellent job with it. And then also Emmanuel quickly also did an excellent job orchestrating the offense and finding his teammates. They just overall, they just kind of tore this Hornets defense apart. On the flip side, the Hornets are one of the worst defenses in the league, and so that could be the reason why. I'm sure it's one of the reasons why we played well. However, was it really the Hornets defense because it was that bad? Or are we seeing something new, something different because of the way the team is playing now without Julius Randle? But R.J. Barrett, he just did an excellent job. He had 30 points, shot 53%. Scored 30 points, shot 53% from the field. And on the defensive end, he contested 13 field goals, only allowed 5 made. Held his opponent down to 39% shooting. He was 14% more efficient than his opponent. And then he also outproduced his opponent by 18 points because he held his opponent down to only 12 points. And so this is just a monster game by RJ on both ends of the floor. I know the rebounds weren't there. We would like to see the rebounds a little higher. However, Obi was kind of aggressive trying to get rebounds as well. But Obi wasn't enough. There was a few times that we did struggle against the Hornets in terms of getting rebounds. And so it's clearly, I think it's clearly something we do need to kind of be worried about going forward. Because normally we're always out rebounding teams. And then the last 2 games without Julius Randle, the previous game the team rebounded really well. However, this game they were out rebounded. And so I do think it's something we need to take a look at and be concerned about. Actually, you know what? Let me retract that. Julius is a big part of it, but the biggest part is actually Mitchell Robinson. It's just because of the way the defense, the way he anchors the defense, he does such a good job where it minimizes like too much chaotic rotations, and then at the same time, because he kind of knows how to position himself in such a way. Although there's a lot of rotations going around, he's still able to find a way to get a body on the big man, the opposing big man, and give our teammates a chance of actually getting the rebound. But in this game is something that we're still working on. There's something that Sims really needs to work on. And so usually when we have that rotation and bodies are kind of moving everywhere, trying to get to the ball and defend the shot, Sims is also moving around, but he's still trying to figure out a good happy balance where he's able to take care of his rotations, like make sure he's able to help his teammates and be there for his rotation, but at the same time be able to find a big man, put a body on a big man to make sure his teammate is able to come in and get the rebound. And so right now, Mitchell Robinson is just obviously way better than Sims is at that right now. But I think it's something Sims can definitely improve on. And so I think that's part of the reason why we had a little bit of rebounding issue this game. However, R.J. Barrett, he only did have 3 rebounds, and it's something we'd like to see a little higher. For us to be able to, if this team wants to consistently do play well, and especially if we're talking about life without, let's say, Julius Randle, we have to be able to rebound well. And I know, like I said, it's not just Julius, but it's also Mitchell Robinson, and then there's a good chance we might even be talking about a life without Mitchell Robinson, especially if he leaves. And so this is something the team definitely needs to work on, but it definitely shows here because RJ only had 3 rebounds. But aside from that, overall, like I said, he just had a monster game on both ends. He was very efficient, shot 53%, scored 30 points, held his opponents, his matchups, he held them down to 12 points. He outscored them by 18 points, held them to 39% shooting, and was 14% more efficient. I mean, this is what we want to see. We want to see, for us to win basketball games and for RJ to be a true number one, to be the real guy, he needs to be more efficient than his matchup, and he needs to outscore his matchup, and that's pretty much what it comes down to. The fact that he's able to do that and also get his teammates involved shows that he is a true number one. And in this game he was a true number one, and it looks like he can be that going forward, and that's if he can maintain the efficiency. Now, the efficiency with R.J. Barrett, this is where Obi Toppin comes in. I think he's a big part of that. It seems like it's extremely difficult to key in on RJ. I'm not a great X's and O's guy. There's a lot of other guys that are really much better at evaluating the game as far as X's and O's and the plays and all that stuff than I am. However, the one thing I'm really noticing is it's extremely difficult to key in on RJ Barrett when Obi Toppin is on the floor. The reason why that is, Obi Toppin, basically, he moves extremely quickly. He's very decisive. And so when he sets that pick, he dives to that basket like very quickly. So at that point, the defender doesn't have time, because he's moving so quickly on these pick and rolls. The defenders don't have enough time to try to hedge their bets, and so that's the one thing about Obi Toppin. He just moves so quickly. It's not even just on a pick and roll. He's just always moving, even off ball, and so it's just very difficult because he's always moving. The defense is like his man can't really key in. Can't just sit there and then focus on the ball handler and then try to help basically the point of attack. And so that's really one big reason why Obi Toppin was really impressive in his game. He just made it extremely difficult for defenses to just kind of key in an RJ and then and just sit there and just try to at least the help defenders, it was very difficult for the help defenders to just kind of sit around and key in on RJ. So that was really good. But aside from that, he's very efficient, right? And again, he had a very efficient game. He's not going to be very efficient every game. He's going to have games where he struggles. But this is the thing I was talking about with Obi Toppin. When he gets the basketball, he knows what he wants to do, right? He reads the game really well, right? He knows what his limitations are. He gets the ball, either he's going to shoot it, or he's going to go to the basket right away, or he's going to pass it. There's three options, right? Shoot it, go to the basket, or pass it. That's really what he does. And he does a very good job of making those decisions very quickly and then getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. If he's not going to take the shot or go to the basket, he's getting the ball out of his hand very quickly. And so that's it. And he really helps facilitate a lot of the ball moving around and the offense kind of flowing really well. And he also facilitates also people moving. You know, when the ball moves the way it does, I think it kind of helps and forces people to also to move and not just sit around as well. And also the ball pops and gets everyone in a good rhythm. He had 8 defensive rebounds. That's a big deal. Julius Randle normally averages 8 defensive rebounds, and this is one of the hallmarks of a really good all-around player. Someone who's number one, who's efficient. Efficiency is number one on the offensive end. The second thing is basically rebounding, especially defensive rebounding on the defensive end. And then the other thing is obviously your defensive acumen, like your matchup. How well did you play against your matchup? Did you hold your matchup to to less points than less points than you scored? And also, were you more efficient than your matchup? And so that's what we're also going to look at, right? And so he scored, like I said, he scored 18 points on 8 of 11, 73% shooting, 11 rebounds overall, right? He was plus 19. But these plus minuses, like I said, I was just trying to highlight this with my numbers here. I really don't pay too much attention to these. It is a really good team stat. Obviously, it helps you look at chemistry, and so that's a very good thing. But however, we're going to leave that alone. So Obi Toppin, like I said, he had 18 points, 11 rebounds on 73% shooting. Now his matchups, he basically held his opponents down to 12 points, and so he outscored his opponents by 6 points. On the defensive end, he did pretty okay on the defensive end. I can see why the coach sometimes is afraid to have Obi out there, because I really wanted to see him play more against basically starting caliber players. And honestly, there's a few times it was kind of a little scary. It was a little touch and go. He really needs to work on. He really needs a lot of work on it. He just needs to make sure he's focused. And also when he's there, there's been some times where he's a little disoriented, because I don't know why he's so disoriented on the defensive end, especially when somebody's attacking him. There's one play where P.J. Washington just kind of put the ball on the ground, drove directly to the basket, and kind of Obi Toppin was kind of really caught off guard. So I wasn't sure if Obi was trying to draw an offensive foul, or was it just he was so disoriented that he just couldn't keep up with P.J. Washington. And then there was just another one where he gave up a layup. I think it was in the first half, but he was there, right? But I think because he was there, but he was caught off guard. But he was there. Could have probably done a better job challenging that layup, but he just didn't. And so the one thing with him, he just has to make sure he does do a good job moving his body, trying to recover and get to where he needs to be and get to his spots on the defensive end. It's really good. However, he just needs to also make sure he's making an honest effort, attempting to challenge the shots. When people are shooting jump shots, he does that. He does that trying to run out to the three-point line. However, the funny thing, now he's starting. There was a few times where I noticed he didn't run out as hard as he should have. But normally when he was coming off the bench, you would see him. I would always see him just speeding out to the three-point line, trying to challenge the shot. So it's a different story when you're starting and you're getting almost 40 minutes a game. However, the numbers said he was effective overall, so he held the opponent down to about 38.5%, 39% shooting from the floor. And he was 34% more efficient than the opponent, which is probably the most important part, because he's so efficient on the offensive end, and he does a fairly solid job on the defensive end. I mean, look at this field goal differential here, 34%. And people think, it might be a fluke game. It's not a fluke game. There's been other games where Obi Toppin, I think the other games where he had a lot of minutes. There was one game where he got a lot of minutes. He didn't have a very good game. But then he had another game. The next game, he played over 40 minutes. And he was I think he had a double-double or close to a double-double. He might have been like same thing, like 18 and 10 or 18 and 9. And I think there was another game where he might have scored 20 points. I'm not sure. So someone can check me on that. If I'm wrong, you can just put it in a comment below. But I think what people are missing is that's who he is. He's just a very efficient basketball player. He's smart. When he has a lane to the basket, he's gonna go to the basket. He's gonna dive and take the easy shot. It's like everyone basically takes that away and knocks him because all his shots is basically at the rim. I mean, who on the team can do what he does? You know, I mean, like thankfully he's blessed with the athleticism where he can actually dive to the basket at will and he can get there before anyone can. Or if he sees an open lane, he can attack it so quickly. He can attack it quickly before actually people are able to react. I mean, that's a very important skill. That makes our offense a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier for us to score. And I don't think people understand that. You're supposed to basketball. You're supposed to take the easy shot. You're supposed to go for the easy shot, right? You're not supposed to make the offense hard, right? You're not supposed to be expending a ton of energy. But Obi Toppin makes the offense easy because he attacks when he's supposed to attack. When he has an open lane, he creates open lanes not just for himself but also for R.J. Barrett, and so that's why it's extremely important. Again, like I said, 73% shooting, held the opponent down to 12 points, and on 39% shooting, he was 34% way more efficient than the opponent. I mean, that's just very impressive. So we're going to go through the rest of the guys real quick. Jericho Sims has a really good game, 5 of 5, 100% shooting. Struggled a little bit on the defensive end. He did have only 3 rebounds, but he tried on the defensive end. He's getting better. But he had a lot of issues. At one point, actually, the coach actually even pulled him out of the game in the fourth quarter. But I'm happy the coach did bring him back so he can basically, to finish out the game because he needs to learn. This is the time for these guys to learn. Honestly, I thought he was a lot worse than he was. Early in the season, he was just terrible. I felt like he shouldn't have been on the floor. However, my thinking was probably closer to Thibodeau's, which was messed up. We should have been playing this kid more early in the season, especially because of the progress he's made. I mean, it's almost like, for me, it was like this kid was terrible early in the season. Then all of a sudden, when he finally shows up again, when Tiz finally starts to play him against at least some decent minutes, I'm like, all of a sudden, this kid is really good. He's actually a very good backup, and he could actually even be a starting caliber center if he can actually do much better job on the defensive end, especially really learn where to be at all times, just kind of get a better feel of the game and be able to quarterback the defense. But I do like the fact that the coach did go back to him and he was able to have some impact on this game. He wasn't, he struggled, but he did well. He allowed 16 points against his matchup. He scored 10 points, allowed 16 points, so he was -6. So his opponent, he lost his matchup by 6 points, and he allowed 6 of 9 shooting. He challenged 9 shots. The offensive player, his opponent, made 6, and so 67% shooting. But because he made all his shots, he was 33% more efficient than his opponent. And so he still sort of lost the matchup, but at least he was more efficient. He was more efficient because even if you discount the opponent's points by the differential, I think the opponent still wins. So I don't know. I'm not even sure how to basically adjust that to factor in this field goal differential, the fact that he was way more efficient than his opponent. I'm really not sure. So let's forget it. Allie Burks had a pretty solid game, 5 of 11, 46% shooting. The thing that is insane is 2 games without Randle, and Allie Burks actually looks like a very good NBA player. 7 rebounds. I've been the last few weeks I've been talking about. Although he's been playing terrible, I have given him a lot of kudos for the fact that he's improved his rebounding quite a bit. Because early in the season, it was a huge problem when it was him and Fournier on the floor. Rebounding for the team was a big problem. But now he's really cleaned that up. But unfortunately we can't say the same for Fournier. Over the last 5 games, I think Fournier has had a total of like 2 rebounds over the last 4 or 5 games. That's just really bad. Somebody needs to talk to this guy about that. But Burks has 17 points, which is excellent. Opponent scored 5 points, so he won his matchup by 5 points. He held his opponent down to 40% shooting, so overall he just won his matchup. He was 6% more efficient than his matchup, and he scored 5 points more than his matchup did, which was great. Evan Fournier struggled shooting the ball, broke John Stark's record. He did score 12 points. Evan Fournier, the story is not, his struggle with the shooting and breaking that record. It was really basically the way he facilitated the offense. I think he had 7 assists in this game. Our team overall had a total of 30 assists. I don't have those stats up here because there's not something I really want to focus on. Because the biggest impact, the biggest predictor of a team's ability to win, in my opinion, is basically this. It's really basically, in a nutshell, the field goal differential. How much more efficient were you than your opponent? Were you more efficient than your opponent? And then were you able to get this defensive rebound, right? Are you able to get more defensive rebound than your opponent? Basically, are you able to limit your opponent to second chance points to offensive rebounds? So that's why the defensive rebound is extremely important. So those are basically what we're focused on. So that's why I didn't pull in the assist in this, because it takes a long time to kind of talk through these videos. I would like to keep it to under 20 minutes, but it's very difficult because it's a lot to kind of get through. And also these guys, there's a lot of guys making contribution, and this is all, to me, is extremely interesting. And it's actually, in my opinion, once we get to this PIE, talking about this PIE and the PIE with the defensive factor, I mean, this tells you how you're supposed to build a team. You can look at this here, and it kind of gives you an idea. Like, this here, the way I'm calculating this, I feel like it tells you how you can basically build your team. By looking at this, and also by looking at my other impact, the impact score that I normally use. I'm not looking at it in this video, but I think the combination of these two, that is the perfect way to build a team. That's how you build a team. That's why I'm focused on these stats and not like everything else, right? But let's keep going. So Evan Fournier, he scored. He did score 12 points, but he did an excellent job facilitating, getting his teammates involved. So that was the thing that was really good. However, he allowed 21 points, so he was outscored by 9 points. And then on top of that, it's like he contested 14 shots and 9 of them were made. So his opponent shot 64%. His opponent was 36% more efficient than he was. So he was 36% less efficient than the opponent. So not only was he less efficient, he also gave up points. And so he flat out just lost his matchup. And so he was actually a detriment to the team, although he did his best to facilitate, which did help our offense. And so it was really good. And so as you see this plus minus, so I guess this is where the plus minus that does come in, because he did a lot, he helped facilitate the offense. It helped the team. He did help the team while he was on the floor in other ways by facilitating the offense. However, on the defensive end, he was terrible. He was really bad on the defensive end. I mean, there's no way around it. But great game, good effort by him on the offensive end. And also, congratulations for breaking that record. John Starks was one of my favorite players. So, but it is what it is. Good job. Manny Quickly, 4 of 9, 44% from the field, scored 10 points. Emmanuel Quickly, he is becoming one of the biggest impact players on his team. He didn't score as many points today, but he did a good job. I think he had like 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 5 defensive rebounds. Emmanuel Quickly, I mean, it's really crazy. Not only has his defense started to pick up again, so when his offense started to come around, I think the last few weeks, I noticed the defense dropped off. I'm like, okay, at least his offense is coming, but now he seems like his defense has dropped off, right? And then now his defense is starting to pick up again the last few games. Like, I want to say the last 2-3 games is starting to pick up again. And boy, this kid is something now. It's like, yeah, he scored only 10 points, However, you look at this. He allowed only 2 points from the opponent. It's not like he didn't challenge any shots and he was just sitting around doing nothing. He challenged 10 shots, and I think he played something like 25 minutes, but he challenged 10 shots, allowed only one made field goal, and held the opponent down to 10% shooting. He was plus 34. He was 34% more efficient than his opponent and outscored him by 8 points. His opponents by 8 points. So he flat out won his matchup. But the part that's crazy because he didn't have a great offensive game. He did a great job facilitating, and so in that sense, it was a great offensive game. But I'm talking about in terms of scoring, because what we're measuring for the biggest impact, the thing that have the stats that have the biggest impact on the team is like, did you win your matchup and how efficient were you? How much more efficient were you? How much more efficient than the opponent were you? That's pretty much what it is. And then also the defensive rebound. So it seems like he's got that down. He's got that down. And so this kid, he struggled earlier. I was very critical of him because he struggled as a point guard. I still kind of feel like I still don't know if they should keep him at point guard, although he's getting better at it. He is getting better at it, but honestly, they have a point guard in the team in Deuce. I really did wish they kind of put the same attention and effort into Deuce as they did to Emmanuel quickly developing that. I think that we would have had a different season. The season would have been a little different if we did that. So that's just an opinion how I feel. But the stats, this kid's stats just speak for itself. He won the matchup and he won it hands down. Outscored the opponent by 8 points and was 34% more efficient. Quentin Grimes still struggling a little bit. He's 1 of 6 from the field, only 17%. Excuse me. Scored 3 points only, and he allowed 9 points. So he lost the matchup because he was outscored by his opponent. Outscored him by 6 points, and then on top of that, he allowed 75% shooting from the opponent. And he wasn't that bad on the defensive end. A lot of times, because a lot of these with Grimes, I noticed he actually does the hard job of like actually even doing the rotations, the uncomfortable rotations, the one that takes the most effort. That's like, okay, there's a man that's not yours that just kind of went around the pick, and Evan Fournier, that's Evan Fournier's man, but Evan Fournier is lost, and now he needs to find a way to get around his man and go challenge this, so he can challenge the shot, which is not really his man, and so. So a lot of or even like most of it I do see sometimes in the rotation, he's rotating to someone who's actually bigger than him, who's shooting the shot, and then that's the other thing why I always say like it's not just about being able to challenge, like the defense isn't just about staying in front of your man, right, and recovering, but it's like how effective are you at challenging a shot and then stopping them from scoring. For a while, his defensive, his opponent's shooting percentage did come down. It actually went all the way down to 43%. But the last couple of games, it's been a little high. And it's not really because he's not trying or he's doing anything wrong, really. I think it's just a product of the rotation sometimes. And then he's rotating to someone who's like P.J. Washington or somebody who's just much bigger than he is. Todd Gibson, he was okay, pretty efficient, 3 or 4 from the field. Had some pretty good moments on the defensive end. Excuse me. He gave us 12 points. His opponents allowed his opponent to score 12 points, so they were even. However, he held the opponent to 56%, and so he was 19% more efficient. So he has some moments. He got lost a couple of times on the defense. There was one time where he was just staring. He kind of successfully challenged the shot, but instead of getting involved, he just kind of was on the sideline, just kind of staring. And his man, unfortunately, Charlotte Hornets got the rebound, and his man he was guarding just basically dove straight to the basket, got the ball, and laid it up, and scored 2 points. And so, so there were a couple of moments where, it was like, wow, he's really, either he's thinking he's gone fishing, or he's thinking about going fishing, or I just didn't, or sometimes he just gets actually outmatched in terms of size and speed. So that does happen to Todd sometimes. So you can't really blame him in those situations too bad. Miles McGrath 3 of 4, 75% shooting, scored 9 points, 2 defensive rebounds, so that was pretty okay. I think he was somewhere close to 20 minutes, so but 2 defensive rebounds, that's okay for now. But we kind of have to see that going forward, because if for this team to be successful, for him to get regular minutes, he definitely wanted to be a little more aggressive in rebounding, at least try to get up to like 4 or 5 rebounds if possible. So that would be really good. He did allow opponents to score 10 points, and so he lost by 1 point on the matchup, but he was 18% more efficient because the opponent did shoot 57% on the field on him, but however he was 18% more efficient. Right? And so that's what we have in terms of like basically the individual matchups and what each individual player did. But now we want to take a look at this two stats here. This is the PIE, and PIE with a defensive factor in there. So this is regular PIE that I calculated. And the thing that's really crazy is I calculated this PIE using basically the formula that they have on NBA.com. And so the PIE is basically you add up all the points, you add up field goals made, you add up free throws made, everything that's a positive contribution to the team, you add it up. And everything that's a detriment to the team, like the turnovers, the personal fouls, right? And also you subtract those, and then you also subtract the field goal attempts, right? You also subtract the free throw attempts, right? And so that's essentially what you're doing. And so and you divide it over the same thing, but at the for the team total, right? I did that, and so this is what I arrived at for each player. Adds up to 100%. But this is what I saw on NBA.com, and this was on the advanced statistics page, the PIE for this game. So it was just totally different. I'm not even sure how they calculated theirs. Again, I definitely followed the formula that they use to calculate this stuff. So it's not like I did it wrong. But I'm assuming that the ones that they're calculating on this on the advanced stats page is probably using some of the statistics that are on the they're using the stats that are actually on the advanced and on this advanced analytics page. That's probably what they're doing, and that's why it's different. And so I've never done that before, but that's the one that I saw there, so that's interesting. So it'll be interesting to basically see if I can calculate it with the advanced analytics, the stats that are there, to see if I come up with the same thing. However, I just wanted to basically point that out, that I calculated this with basically traditional statistics, the traditional score box, and I got this from the advanced analytics page for the game, and they're different. They're different, and so it is that's pretty much it is what it is. Let me see, and then Miles McBride was 32 on there too. He was the highest. Had the highest PIE according to this score here. But for mine, mine was different. For the PIE, now the PIE really it's really looking at your contribution to the game, right, as a percentage of the total production, the team production. So like I said, it's adding all the contributions and subtracting all the errors and mistakes. That's pretty much what it's doing, right? And then it comes up with a percentage. And here it says R.J. Barrett was at 18%, and Obi Toppin was actually the best on the team at 25%. But the reason why that is because it's just looking at efficiency. It's really just looking at efficiency. And then also, of course, it's adding in defensive rebounding places. It places it doesn't place a bigger weight on defensive rebound than it does on anything else. But however, Obi Toppin was much higher, was at 25%, because number one, he was way more efficient than RJ was. He shot 73% and scored 18 points. RJ Barrett did score more points than he did, but Obi was was basically 20% more efficient. And then also Obi had 5 more rebounds than RJ did. And then also it does factor in offensive rebound, but it basically takes the offensive rebound, divides it by 2. And so, but Obi basically also got an additional 1.5 added to the score, right? And so that's why he was higher here. But RJ here was number 2. And then number 3 was Allie Burks. 4 was Emmanuel Quickly. And number 5 was Todd Gibson, interestingly. And number 6 was Miles McBride. And Todd Gibson obviously was higher than Miles McBride because he did shoot. He was just as efficient as Miles was. He did not lose his matchup. Miles did lose his matchup by 1 point. And then also, Todd was 1 percentage point more efficient than Miles McBride. And so he did edge him out and was more efficient than he was, right? And so that's kind of how this is. It was Obi Toppin for this one, then RJ Barrett, then everyone else. And I kind of explained the reason why Obi Toppin was on top, right? However, it does not factor into defensive effort, right? And like all the defensive effort, the PIE, the only defensive factor that it factors in is the defensive rebound, and it factors in steals and blocks, right? Those are the only defense that you factor, but it doesn't like factor in the bulk of the defense. Really, the bulk of the defense is your ability to stay in front of your man, challenge the shot, and stop him from scoring, right? And then the best way for me to incorporate that was basically by looking at this net point production, just adding this net point production to the PIE factor. So I'm just pretty much just adding it, right? And so when you do add it, you kind of realize, and then everything kind of switches. RJ Barrett is the number 1. Excuse me, he's at 29%, right? Obi Toppin comes in a little close. He's at 26%, almost 26.5. The third one was Alec Burke. I'm sorry, the third one was actually Emmanuel Quickly because of the defensive factor, as you notice, as you see here, because Emmanuel Quickly was way more efficient than Alec Burke was, and it was mostly because of his defense. Emmanuel Quickly did not shoot that great. He shot 44% from the field. It was 2% less efficient than Alec Burks. However, he played much better defense than Alec Burks. He was 34% more efficient than his opponent, and Alec Burke was only 6%. And Emmanuel Quickly outscored his opponent by 8 points. Excuse me. And so that's the reason why it kind of is swapped here, and he was able to take the lead for the number 3 spot over Alec Burks. So Alec Burke was number 4 in terms of impact on the team. Todd Gibson was number 5, and it definitely it made sense because he did he did an okay. Well, he didn't do that great defending. He kind of struggled here and there on the defensive end. However, he was more, he did win his match. Well, he didn't win the matchup. It was even, and he was more efficient, 19% more efficient. And then also, this is where the rebound factors in. Of course, the rebounding also kind of gave him an extra edge, additional edge as well. And so that's why he was able to edge out Miles McBride. And so, and as you see here, Quentin Grimes was minus 3.8. And so, he was a drag on the team. And according to this, Evan Fournier was a drag on the team. And mostly it was because of the defensive effort by Evan Fournier. It basically, the teams were just kind of went after him. They were targeting him. And so, and Quinn Grimes is just, he's struggling shooting, just getting back into it. So his efficiency was extremely low. And then the defense, the numbers just, didn't work in his favor in terms of the defensive stats. He was able to stay with his man, but he just wasn't effective enough in preventing his opponent from missing a shot. He just wasn't effective enough to do that. And so that's why he was a minus 3.8%. And so, and pretty much that's what we have, guys. These are the guys that had the, that had the impact on the game. These are all the guys. They all had an impact on the game. But this is me just ranking, showing you basically who had the most impact and why they had the most impact and who had the least impact on the game. So that's pretty much what I have, guys. Please like and subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you think. I'll be more than happy to comment, to respond to your comments. Thank you.